Been a while since I've done one of these, but man, I'm feeling good. So I just put up a quick article yesterday on the site because, well, my brain got to thinking, and when my brain gets to thinking, sometimes I think of crazy stuff. I happened to be in the grocery store watching kid play on his mother's iPhone. And for some reason, I don't know why, maybe it was just because, I don't know, my brain got to thinking, I figured it out. The Razer Phone is the best phone for kids. Now I wrote an article, a review of the Razer Phone. You of course can read that click on the link in the description below. It's a big review, it talks about a whole bunch of stuff. And I liked the phone, I really did, but there was just a few things that keep me from wanting it or even looking at buying another one. But this had me thinking, how would the Razer Phone be the best phone for a kid and why? So here are 5 of my reasons why the Razer Phone is the best phone for a kid. Got my list? Get to it. Number 1, the speakers. I'm just going to keep it short and sweet. They're just flat out the best. Period. End of report. Let the dog out, say bye to the in-laws, and go on vacation. That's it. They are loud, clear, good, and with Dolby 5.1 and Dolby Atmos in there, there's just no beating them. And the good thing about them is because they are loud and clear and crisp, if your kid is watching a movie or watching a game, they can actually reduce the noise of the speaker. So turn the volume down and they'll still be able to hear very well. And you won't go crazy with whatever they're listening to, like some stupid show on YouTube for kids. So front facing speakers, but bam, number 1. Number 2, front-facing speakers. What? That's correct. Again, the second reason is the front-facing speakers. Not so much the speaker themselves, but it's the actual grill or the enclosure of the speakers themselves that make it the best. It is, as I've looked and I've watched, you can hold the phone perfectly in your hands for games, for movie watching, for just doing a video of yourself, whatever you want. Where the front facing speakers are makes it perfect for little bitty thumbs and allows them to hold the phone properly and also not reduce the noise that is coming out of the speakers. As you know, on a front facing speaker, when you end up holding the phone, you end up covering the bottom speaker. That little speaker right there. So, and then if you have capacitive keys on the bezel like you do on the HTC U11, you end up accidentally tapping one, going into multi-view or hitting the back button or even accidentally hitting the home button, and it just doesn't make for a good experience. Also, if you're like on the Samsung where you have such a big screen real estate, you can accidentally hit those on-screen buttons too. So it forces them to kind of hold it like this, where they can't really get their thumbs on it properly to hold. They got to hold it like that and to do it. And then they have to really kind of crank this one over to the side to be able to hear properly, because if they don't, they cover up the speaker, then it gets muted, then all of a sudden you got to crank the volume all the way up, and then when they take their hand off, it blares you, scares the snot out of you, especially if you're driving. But on the Razer, it's perfect. Bam, bam. Right there on the grills, you can still hear it. You can hold it properly. It's grippy. It's good stuff. So, number 2 reason why it's a perfect phone for kids, front-facing speakers. Perfect handhold spot. Number 3. 8 gigabytes of RAM. Yep, 8. 8 gigabytes of RAM gives you some long teeth in the fight when it comes to making sure you have enough of that to be able to play games, watch videos, multitask, whatever you want to do. With most phones coming out now, even the lower end phones are coming out with 3 gigabytes. 4 gigabyte is really the minimum for mid-range and even a lot of flagship phones, and a lot of them going into 6 gigabytes. But nobody is coming out with 8 gig. So Razer having 8 gigs allow them to really keep the dog in the fight longer here, because it allows that 835 processor to just last longer. Better gameplay, better video. Everything with 8 gigabytes of RAM really does help it. So when you got 4, you start to looking at maybe 2 years, and the applications themselves start to outpace what's in the phone. Well, with 8 gigabytes, you're not outpacing nothing for a while. So 8 gigabytes of RAM allows the phone to be used longer, kept longer. So if you're looking at a hand-me-down phone, meaning it's being passed down through the generations, so I buy a phone, then it gets passed down to the next generation, they use it for a year or two, then all of a sudden it gets passed down to the next generation. When they're ready for a phone, but not quite ready for a brand new phone, so you give them an older phone that's maybe 4 or 5 years old, it works perfectly. 8 gigs, Razer did it. Not gonna lie, did good. Number 4, the display. I killed the display in my review. I just destroyed it because it's not bright enough out in the sun. It is just, oh, it needs like to be cranked up to 8 bazillion lumens to see in the sun. And that's a problem. But most kids are either going to be playing it in the car, inside, in the mall somewhere, in the grocery store, wherever, and the sunlight doesn't really affect that. You're not going to have to worry about the display not being bright enough. So that part doesn't affect it. But what makes it perfect is the one baddest thing they got, 120 hertz refresh rate. Zap. Makes everything better. Plus, as games come down, as they come out, as they really start to utilize the 120 hertz and get away from the 60 hertz, the display is already there. So again, when we talked about longevity of the 8 gigabytes of RAM, you've now got that same longevity in the display, right? So now, when games come out at 120 hertz, you don't have to worry about a phone not being able to handle it or not being able to play it. It'll play it just fine, no problem. And because you can step it from 60 to 90 to 120, you can also optimize what you're doing on the phone and maybe help the battery last longer. Or maybe just not need 120 hertz, so you bump it down to 60 and overall is better. So 120 hertz refresh rate on the display makes it perfect. Movies, games, whatever. Number 5. 5. The SD card. Now this is kind of a, I know what some of you gonna say. There's things that's more important on that phone, like battery and the size of the battery, than a stupid SD card. No. Now when it comes to kids, because I'm gonna tell you why. SD cards right now, the highest micro SD card I've seen is 400 gigabytes by SanDisk. Just came out. I have a link in the article, and I also have a link in the description below. Samsung's got a 256 SD card, which is, that's not uncommon, but 400 is about the max you can get in a micro SD card. Remember, we're talking micro SD card. So having the ability to be able to store up to 2 terabytes at class 10 micro SD card allows you to be able to throw a whole bunch of movies on there. A whole bunch of movies. And here's my numbers. You can handle up to 2 terabytes with the class 10 micro SD card, which is plenty fine for anything other than a 4K movie. The new 4K movies, you're going to need something a little bit better to get smoother. But if you're just running Blu-ray, then you're on par. For $256, you're going to get 32 movies, give or take a little bit in the gigabytes, but 32, so say 31, give you a little room. And on the 400 gigabyte, that's 50 movies. That's averaging 8 gigabytes of movie. 8. And depending on how you rip your own movies, depending on what encoder you use or how you do it, whether you do it as .mkv or even if you do the new H.265, that's still a chunk of movies for maybe a vacation, a drive somewhere for a few days. You have plenty of room for movies. Plus, the way that Android now allows you to send GAVE data to the SD card, you can also save that information as well. So you have plenty of options here for that. Now, I killed the fact of the camera not being able to record to the SD card for the 4K and taking the pictures. But that doesn't matter here. Because when you're talking about a kid, it doesn't matter about the photos. I mean, yeah, the camera's good enough for a kid where they can take pictures. But in reality, I'd much rather have them being able to watch a movie and sit quietly back in the back of the car or on the plane with their wireless headphones than I would be worrying about the camera. Now, while I thought about this, because coming up with the SD card was kind of tough, because when I traveled a lot for work, I used to put a lot of movies on SD cards, but I had to play them on my computer, on my laptop, which was somewhat cumbersome on a plane, especially if you're a bigger guy like me riding in coach. There's not a lot of wiggle room. So for a kid to have this ability at this size screen, this quality of screen, be able to watch the movies and have plenty of room, that actually takes it past the battery. But let me give you some bonus reasons. Battery. Yes, I gave it as a bonus because the battery lasts for frickin' ever. Ever. I have literally sat it on my desk fully charged. I watched a video on it. I turned it off. I left it there for 4 days. Coming in, just making sure it was on more so than anything else. Not charging it or anything else. Sucker still had 3/4 of a battery left after 4 days. I mean, just coming in and randomly checking it just to make sure it was still working. And then I ended up watching it because I was busy doing some other things. I ended up watching more movies on it. And by the end of that, I watched 3 more movies on that thing while I was doing some other work. It still had battery to go. Still. Whatever Razer did with the battery and optimization and 8 gigabytes of RAM and 835, money. Display. But I know I've already talked about the display and 120 hertz, but it comes down to color representation in this one because it's gorgeous. They nail the color representation pretty doggone good. And it really is pretty. And since they have HDR and all that fun stuff, it's a good looking display. I'm not gonna lie, they did a good job. I just wish it was brighter. Case. The case is awesome. It's tight, snugger than a bug in a rug. But the good thing is, it's flat on the bottom. So you just set that sucker flat on the table. You can watch a movie all day long, never have to hold it. With the front facing speakers, bam, done. So it gives you an opportunity to have a no kickstand. I wish there was a kickstand because it would angle a little bit better. But you know what? If I'm sitting here at my desk and I want to watch a movie, I just move it back a little bit. I can still see it clearly. I got the front facing speakers blasting stuff in my eardrums, and I'm golden. And the final bonus reason, that 3-headed snake is just stinking cool. Everywhere I went when I had this phone, everywhere I went, everybody asked me about it. What is that? Where does that come from? How does that work? Which way? What? And it's that 3-headed snake symbol. That's what it does. It draws the attention. So that is just stinking cool. So, final thoughts. $700 is a chunk of change for a phone for a kid. No doubt about it. Unless you're just dollar bill y'all and don't care, that's a lot of money. Especially if you're just buying a phone for a kid to have. Maybe it's their time to have a phone. Maybe they're old enough, they're starting that process, and you're teaching responsibility and everything else. $700 is a chunk of change for a kid. But if you're like me, who bought it, used it, and then can pass it on, $700 works perfectly for a family. Perfectly. Because if you have, let's say the father gets it, he uses it for a year and he's about ready for a new phone anyways. He passes it down to the first kid who's ready for another phone, who then passes down his or her phone to the next generation, and you just do this hand-me-down, pass-me-down move, and everybody's happy. So by the time this phone gets to wherever 4 years later, it's still good. It's still relevant, it'll still run, it'll still work, it'll still be a powerful phone. Now what you've done is you've taken $700 and you put it out over the 4, 5, 6 years maybe, versus just over maybe 1.5 to 2 years. Then all of a sudden you're getting your money's worth. Would I still recommend to buy this phone? Yes and no. The camera and the SD card, not being able to do stuff to SD card, and the display not being bright enough are still the things that kick me in the head every time and just keeps me from recommending it. They really are. But if you have a phone and you come to me and ask me, said, is this a good phone to pass down to my kid? Absolutely it is. Yes, do it. Let them have it. Teach them responsibility of technology. Teach them responsibility of the social networks. Teach them responsibility of how to use a phone, how the App Store works, security. Use it as your method to teach, because we have to. And it will still be a powerful phone for them. Even if you have a teenager right now and you're giving them a phone and you're passing it down, it is the perfect phone to pass down. So those are my 5 reasons plus 4 bonus reasons, give you 9 reasons why this is the best phone for a kid. And just remember, protect yourself. Back up your stuff. I use Backblaze both personally and professionally. So you can always get new phones. You can always get new cameras. You can always get new computers. You can't get that data back. Use Backblaze. Back your stuff up. Keep it secure. When you're out and about, use a VPN. I do. Drives everybody nuts. But that also protects. So make sure you do those 2 things. And always stay out of trouble. Because remember, it's cheaper to stay out of trouble than it is to get in it.